What's going on, y'all? It's your boy Cool Colas here, and you are now tuning into a new episode of the Pro-Black Blurred Kingdom podcast. On today's episode, we are going to be talking about a number of different things. Specifically, our main point is going to be about Zoe Kravitz and getting called too urban when auditioning for a role in Dark Knight Rises. I will also be going on to a different conversation that is related to this, discussing the issues that I see with mixed blacks when it comes to white supremacy and their off code-ness. I'll also go into a little bit of detail about a few things such as the Meghan Markle situation and how this ties into that, and the Jussie Smollett situation that recently just happened. Again, the topic here is mainly about Zoe Kravitz getting called too urban when auditioning for a role in Dark Knight Rises, but the general focus outside of that will be the off-code-ness that is seen and experienced from mixed blacks. So a handful of weeks ago, when the Batman movie first came out, there were some reports that were going around about the actress Zoe Kravitz and how she made a statement saying that she wanted to audition for a minor role in the Dark Knight Rises movie, and she was told that she was too urban, quote unquote, to audition for the movie. I want to detail out some contents of this article so that you can hear for yourself what was actually stated. The article that I'm reading from was made by The Hollywood Report, and it was made on March the 7th of 2022. The article states, Zoe Kravitz is getting strong reviews for her portrayal of Selina Kyle, aka Catwoman, in Matt Reeves' The Batman. But the actress says she wanted to audition for a role in Chris Nolan's 2012 epic The Dark Knight Rises and was shot down because she was too urban. I don't know if it came directly from Chris Nolan, the 33-year-old said in an interview with The Guardian. I think it was probably a casting director of some kind, or a casting director's assistant, being a woman of color and being an actor, and being told at the same time that I was able to read because of wasn't able to read because of the color of my skin, and the word urban being thrown around like that. That was what was really hard about that moment. So that part right there, I'm kind of going off a little bit here. That part right there, I think, was a quote that Zoe Kravitz actually said herself. The Mad Max Fury Road actress previously talked about the experience in a 2015 interview with Nylon when she said, "They told me that I couldn't get an audition for a small role they were casting because they weren't going urban, quote unquote. It was like, what does that have to do with anything? I have to play the role like, yo, what's up, Batman? What's going on with you?" This is what Zoe Kravitz is saying once again. The actress later added on her Instagram stories that such a stance was hardly unusual for roles at the time. I did not mention, and this is what was also said by Zoe Kravitz, I did not mention this to point any fingers or make anyone seem racist, namely Chris Nolan, the film's producers, or anyone on the casting team, because I truly do not believe anyone really meant any harm. I was simply giving an example of what it was like to be a woman of color in the industry at that time. Again, this was many years ago when words like that were thrown around very casually, and although I'm very glad that we are attempting to evolve, let's all calm down. The actress also slammed stories that misreported her comments as claiming she was auditioning to play Catwoman in Dark Knight Rises rather than a small role. Kravitz trained for 4 months to prepare for her physical performance in The Batman and studied videos of big cats to prepare her character's stride and movements. Warner Brothers and Nolan had no immediate comment on the casting story. Kravitz added in the interview that she hasn't been interested in doing roles that are explicitly about race. And then there's another quote, I think, from her. At one point, all the scripts that were being sent were about the first black woman to make a muffin or something, she said. Even though those stories are important to tell, I also want to open things up for myself as an artist. After reading that, there is quite a bit to unpack. So there's definitely a lot that we need to really talk about here. I think that the first thing that we need to think about is the elephant in the room, right? Whenever you are called urban by any white person, and in this case, a casting director, it's a proxy for saying something is niggerish or too black. In other words, there's a lot of anti-blackness in that statement alone. If you look at Zoe Kravitz physically and just the way she carries herself, no one, and I mean like literally no one, would ever see her and say, look at that hood rat, or she is so ghetto. Nobody is ever going to say that if they look at her. Most people, when they see her, more so, they would see her as an alternative black girl, or in a less refined way of saying it, they would more so call her weird or whitewashed even. None of those statements are said to diss Zoe, so I just want to make that clear, but I'm just putting a few things into objective perspective here. The point I'm trying to make here is that it would be absurd from a discernment standpoint to even sit there and miscategorize her as something as too urban. And my belief is that white supremacists are and have always been intellectually sound and experts at creating agendas around analyzing black folks. I think even Will Smith a while back made a statement saying something to the effect of the fact that racists have to be some of the stupidest people on the planet. And when he said that, I said to myself, that is 100% false. White supremacists who practice anti-black racism are some of the most intelligent individuals to walk the planet. I will repeat that. White supremacists who practice anti-black racism are some of the most intelligent, this is unfortunate, intelligent individuals to walk the planet. And the reason why is they understand the concept of survival and have created an entire system around controlling what happens to other groups based on systemic practices that ultimately control resources and economics. On top of that, they've added so many layers to this practice that they have the whole world fooled about how deep it is, or even the general idea that it even exists. I say all this to say they didn't say that she be too urban because they're dumb. They did it because they were being anti-black and they knew exactly what they were doing. So I need to say this, and I mean all of this with love, with the best intentions ever. But what I believe a lot of mixed kings and queens, and in this case queens because we're talking about Zoe Kravitz, needs to realize is that they too will experience anti-black racism, and their Caucasian side will not protect them from that, nor should they see themselves as any different than any other black person in terms of getting treated with anti-black racism. My next problem with all this is that if she was going to just decide to mention this, she should have said it with her chest. Let's be real. She should have said that shit with her chest. In many instances, when someone gets abused, they tend to protect their abusers, even if they give someone on the outside world a snippet of them reacting to the way they have been abused or reacting to the abuse itself. Not only is that what I believe somewhat happened here, but it also mirrors the relationship that exists between blacks and whites when it comes to anti-black racism. We are too apprehensive to call it out. We rather tell our brothers and sisters they are reaching when they say things about this, and when they really say things with their chest, when they talk about anti-black racism. We become almost the defenders of white people, and we often write it off as some asshole-like treatment, or them just being a bad person, and this being an individual attack, which it totally is not. In this case, Zoe was going around here splaining. And she was trying to defend whoever made the comment. She was clearly trying to protect Chris Nolan, but to me, it doesn't matter. Someone called that audible in saying that she was too urban, and overall, like communally, it was an approved decision. To me, that sounds like a case of someone exhibiting anti-blackness and others pretending like it didn't happen or it shouldn't be addressed, which makes them equally as guilty in my eyes. I say everything that I say with love once again. I just want to make that very, very clear. Because Zoe Kravitz is a black queen. Let's be clear. She's a black queen. But at the same time, we have to give her tough love by saying, I need you to say that shit with your chest. That's really the bottom line there. If you were going to say it, don't say a snippet of it. If you were going to bring it up, say it with your chest. Ain't no half stepping this way. Also, I want to criticize her use of the word woman of color. Y'all know how I feel at this point about the term people of color. I made it very clear that I hate that statement and I can't stand when our people use it because it is undermining us and our struggle. And it groups us in with other people in order to make it seem like we have a generalized struggle that is, I guess, the same or similar amongst all quote unquote minorities, as they love to say. So in other words, our struggle is equal to the struggle of Jews and the struggle of Hispanics, and that's just disrespectful to black people. Our people always want to throw that shit around, but this is not a people of color issue. This is an issue that deals directly with anti-blackness, and she needed to state it in that way. You don't really hear people go around telling Asians or Hispanics or the so-called people of color that I mentioned that they are too, whatever their culture is, to be good enough to play a role. You just don't hear that outside of someone being black. We are not people of color, y'all, and I really, really want y'all to just stop saying that and stop allowing white America and everyone else who plays into it to continue to benign neglect us. We have got to end that. I think Zoe even mentioned it happened some years ago. Like it happened and luckily we are in a space where people evolve and grow, and to be honest, that was a decade ago, and so now we're talking a decade later, 2022, because I was in 2012. I see the same type of anti-blackness still going on in all types of spaces, even outside of the music. Even outside of the movie industry, I see the same anti-blackness going on in 2022 that I did in 2012 when this happened. Some people believe the reason for this amount of defense from her is because she wanted to be able to have other roles, and this could create a controversy, and others believe that she just made it up altogether. I don't believe she made it up personally. I don't. But I think she wanted to toe the line. And she wanted to tell that line of speaking her trauma and the truth of what happened to her, but also not enough for Hollywood to blackball her in her career so that she can get to where she wants to get to. And no, her getting a major role in the Batman movie is not a win, and it's certainly not a repayment for what happened in her auditioning for a role in Dark Knight Rises. And the fucked up part about all this is, it wasn't even a big role that she was auditioning for. It wasn't even like she was trying to be like one of the major characters there, like she was trying to be Catwoman in that movie. And to me, if they wanted her to be LaQuisha, the hood rat from hell, would it have really even mattered if the role was insignificant for her to be quote unquote too urban? And even if that person was too urban or whatever, what is the actual problem with that? I really want to know. I think the solution in all this here is that we as black people need to create our own stories and have our own production studios made by trusted and on code black folks who are willing to let us tell our stories without being mistreated like this sister was. We have got to stop putting so much prestige on big names and movies and start coming together and building our own studios and getting our own networks to make the magic happen without these little slick anti-black comments or scrutiny or any of this other BS that we tend to get from the white power structure. Now I want to tell you all a little bit of a story here, and this kind of relates to the topic about Zoe Kravitz. So I made a post about this on Instagram maybe a couple weeks ago when the situation went down. And this goofy troll, like, I didn't even know the dude. He wasn't following me. He just came on my picture and he just made a comment when I stated everything that I'm telling you all now in a more condensed way. He basically kept saying, this is nothing new and people love labels. And then I think he made a comment about how there was no such thing as a mixed child, just people with lighter complexions, because we as black people are all mixed in our own way. He kept trying to undermine my knowledge of genetics, and he said something about there being a lot of stereotyping going on, then made a comment about how I was right about supporting black ownership. So he did all this. He was just like going on, and then he ended off saying, yeah, you're right about the whole black ownership thing. So he was just trolling. So I commented back and I said, you may not like labels, but what I hate are bad faith arguments. You telling me that this is nothing new is unnecessary. If you don't think that this is anything new, then you would allow me to champion for it and bring awareness instead of causing trolling discord in my argument that has absolutely nothing to do with what is being spoken about. Then I told him, when it comes to the system of white supremacy, I use the term mixed to denote a person who has a white parent and a black parent, or two parents who are both mixed. And in Zoe's case, that's two parents who are both mixed. And that they too will experience racism in the social construct that was created in America, as he so hypercritically mentioned. I told him that his talking point about us all being mixed is a right-wing white supremacist talking point that could enable a white person to claim racism can't exist because they have black in them too, because their ancestors raped black slaves and they were born down the line from that. I didn't think that I had to post all of that, and I told him that because that's 2,000. We only are allowed 2,000 characters on an Instagram post. Then I told him, next time, just lead with the fact that you want us to all support black ownership and move the fuck on. Because the truth is, he knew all that already. He knew all of that already. Especially what I meant about the mixed comment. He knew what I meant when I said mixed. He knew I meant a black parent and a white parent. He knew that. He was just trying to be funny. So after I said all this to old dude, he came back later and he tried to argue again. I deleted the comment because with me, I don't like to argue back and forth with folks. I say what I got to say and I keep it moving because that's too much like wasting of your energy. He came back once more and he tried this time, instead of like trying to restate the same thing he stated, because I think that's what he did before I deleted the comment. He came back and he said, and there's always a victim, as if to call me a victim. And then I responded back to him and I said, and there is always a coon. Now stay the hell off my page. Now, if you go back to my Instagram, if you follow me on Colas Creative, you won't be able to see it, but I just had to make that comment to y'all and tell you all that quick story. So, funny thing about this, I went over to Buddy's Instagram page, right, to kind of fill out, you know, what he was about, and he had pics with nothing but white folks. His daughter was mixed, and then his wife or baby mama, whoever, she was white. And as a matter of fact, there was a guy who was older. He looked like he was fully black like him. I think he had to be his brother. I think they were the only black people that were actually in his pictures. So I had to sit there and think, this explains so much. First of all, let's get something straight. We need to stop seeing the word victim as an insult. I know that we're in this funky ass hustle culture bullshit in our world, and white supremacy also plays a role into that, and they got you believing that it's all about pulling up your bootstraps. But we as black people are victims. We are victims of white supremacy, and being a victim has nothing to do with trying to fight back. Being a coon is something that he can easily help, but he chose to do. Plus, this fool just said he didn't like labels and then tried to call me a victim as if it was a pejorative. The second part is, it's clear to me that he was trying to erase his whole situation, or he felt some form of insecurity about the fact that he was kicking it with a white woman and had a mixed child. And that's why I feel like he got all up in arms, because he was in the post calling his woman Peach and shit. And I'm like, all right, nigga, like, you got your little Princess Peach and you're trying to low-key hide your little hankering for white women, and that's the reason why you insecure. So I won't get too deep into interracial dating and all that. I'll save my thoughts about how I feel about that for another podcast topic, but I just wanted to tell y'all that story because that kind of pertained to the conversation and what happened there. So, a lot of what happened to Zoe Kravitz is not anything new. There's also similar situations where a lot of anti-black racism happened to other mixed blacks that we know about. And one example of that, a big example of that, is Meghan Markle. So, she had I wouldn't say a similar story, but she had something also very anti-black happened to her as well. Think about it. So many black women were big upping Meghan Markle when she first got with Prince Harry, like this was some type of astounding accomplishment, or maybe even a removal from this like white supremacist system, because now she's like in this royal family and she was moving up or whatever, which to me is hypocritical to the idea that this would not fly if a black man tried to marry a white royal princess. But that's neither here nor there. I just wanted to make that point, that this was looked at as some type of like higher up removal or something. And in a way, it seemed as though the royal family and Prince Harry were the only people who she surrounded herself with. And granted, I don't know the sister's life like that, but everything about her just seemed removed from embracing black culture from the outside looking in. But then when all the stuff went down and she experienced racism at the hands of the royal family, shit didn't seem so sweet. I mean, the royal family had to really reach to be racist on this one, because if you look at Meghan Markle, she is melanated, but she is extremely light, like almost a tinted white color. They were fussing about this damn baby being melanated and that it would ruin the royal bloodline or something like that, not even considering the idea that Prince Harry was going to be adding to the lightening of the baby. Now, I'm not justifying that like, oh, well, that's what I want to happen. I'm just saying that, like, literally, look how far they're reaching. That's why I said that it's such a far reach, because they still found a way to make it about blackness, and the blackness is literally continuously getting removed through the lineage. Then what happened after that? Her blackness became a big thing again, and people like Oprah and Tyler Perry were coming to her aid. And in a way, I felt, I kind of feel bad for, a lot of mixed black people, because they're like in that middle ground. So I want to make that clear. I do feel bad for people like, Meghan Markle and just mixed people in general. Some blacks don't accept them because they aren't fully black and they're still subjected to white supremacy at the same time. So it's like a rough place, like they're just getting hit from all angles. And for them, it's like they have to decide between possibly having to go to war with a white parent if they say something to advocate for their race, or just going along to getting along because of the lifestyle that's presented to them. And you know what? It's so funny that we're now talking about this. I wanted to bring this up real quick. There was a video that, I don't know if it was like it recently happened or somebody just recently started showing it virally, but there was this, I want to say she was either like a young adult or a high school level girl. I don't really know. She was a mixed black girl, and she probably was probably either in her late teens or early 20s. I'm guessing right now. And she called out her mom on social media. And the reason why she called out her mom is because she was telling her mom she couldn't say the N-word. And her mother also was saying that she was blacker than her. Like her mother, who was white, was saying that she is blacker than her daughter, who is a mixed black girl. And she was telling her mother, you can't do these things. And so as she was saying this, her mother was trying to throw her out of the house for telling her what she could not say. And she was like, well, if you don't like what I'm saying, you can get out and all this other stuff. And because the daughter was living with her, and the mother started babbling, and she said the daughter was racially profiling her as a white person, and the daughter didn't really love her. And it was just some straight nonsense. And it just made me sick to watch that shit. A lot of people, they think that the color has nothing to do with love or anything like that in these types of relationships. And it's like, well, yeah, it definitely does, because look at this girl here. She can't even be comfortable embracing her culture and also putting up boundaries for the ways that her culture gets disrespected, even with her own parents. And that's the situation that a lot of like mixed blacks get put into. And that's why I said I feel bad, because it's like, how do you go about that situation? And it's like, you got to now at this point almost disown your family. And then some people are not going to resonate with what you said. Some people are. That's a difficult thing to get into, because it's one thing to, say screw a friend, screw a, like a random family member. But then when you're saying screw your parent because they're a racist, that's a whole nother ballpark. And, my position is, I say fuck them. But I mean, like, a lot of people aren't really cut like that. So I guess I'm just saying that to say, just from an empathetic standpoint, if I'm putting myself in their shoes, I could see why that would be a difficult situation. Anyway, mixed blacks need to understand that in the system of white supremacy, they have got to get on code, knowing that they are going to potentially be subjected to that system of white supremacy, subjected to racism because of the color of their skin. But I also want any of my viewers who are mixed black to know, as they're listening to me, that you have my full support in that process as well too, because to me, you are black. To me, I consider you black, even though you have one parent who is not black. So I just wanted to make sure that I cleared that up. Last thing I want to talk about, not since we're talking about the off-code-ness of mixed black persons and things that we see, is the recent situation with Jussie Smollett. So, once again, speaking of off-code and being a mixed black person, which Jussie Smollett is, I wanted to kind of give my thoughts on the recent situation with him serving some time. So again, everybody knows that Jussie was about to serve time because of his alleged staged attack that was done to him. And it seems that in this situation, it's kind of taken a sour turn where he and his family, in a way, specifically his brother, I want to say his name is Jacquin Smallett. I wonder if I said his name right, but Jacquin Smallett made a statement as if to slam straight black men and make us the face of the lack of support for Jussie. To be honest with y'all, I hate all of this because Jussie is being super disingenuous and anti-black in his own way. He's trying to uphold the liberal agenda of making the black man the villain in all of the problems of the black community, just as they would want to. And he's doing all this because things aren't going his way. Jussie started out making this almost LGBT stance by saying that he was the gay Tupac, after some dudes like beat him down and yelled, "This is MAGA country." He tried to throw, black in there at some point, but I would argue that it really was about being LGBT for him at first, because if it was about being black, he would have just said that he was the reincarnation of Tupac, not the gay Tupac, as if to remove the fact that Tupac is a black man, but now he's gay, but he has like the personality traits of Tupac. If he said Tupac reincarnated, he's carrying on the idea that he's a black man, and he's almost ignoring the fact that he's LGBT. So that's why I said, like, if he would have phrased it like that, then yeah, I probably would have said, well, I think he's trying to say that this is about him being black, but he really was saying that this was about him being gay at first. And yet and still, he has not slammed the white supremacists who talked mad shit about him, because there were a lot of white right-wing folks who said a lot of scurvy stuff about him, right? There was a whole lot of them that did. And he has not also targeted the LGBT community, specifically the white LGBT community, for not really giving him a lot of support for real. So he didn't even challenge them. When that didn't work, he seemingly switched what this was all about and made it a black thing. And he swiftly turned on straight black men in the black community for not supporting him. My issue with this, and I and many straight black men who I know have actually spoken up for Jussie in a way. And I'm going to explain what I mean by that. A lot of people are like, well, that's not true because, people make jokes about him, yada, 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 yada. No, like, y'all got to hear what I'm saying. A lot of us think it's that he's acting kind of funny, and he might be lying even, but look at how the criminal justice system is doing him. They still haven't persecuted that white woman, Carolyn Bryant, her bitch ass, for having Emmett Till kidnapped and brutally murdered. But then y'all want to have all this energy for persecuting Jussie for quote unquote lying, and no one who was actually a target got murdered or any real damage in the process. I mean, Emmett Till lost his life. He lost his life, and they had to wait for this bitch to literally admit many years down the line what she did, right? Jussie has not, in all of this that he's done, nobody got killed, and really, he's the only one who kind of like either faked or whatever an ass whooping, but really no harm was done to anybody who was a target. Let's be clear here. I, myself, and others have openly said this, and I'm a straight black man. Yet, he wants to sit here and slam all of us for not going along with whatever bullshit he threw out there. That whole situation kind of just frustrated me, because it's like, Jussie, like, how dare you and your brother get mad at us straight black men when you haven't even opened your mouth to check the liberal whites or the LGBT community who greenlit that doing what you did deserves support in Trump's America. Like, no, you haven't even done that. But this is what I mean though, y'all. This is what I mean by when I say there's a lot of off-code things that a lot of mixed blacks have got to stop doing. They've got to get on code, especially because we are not the ones who are doing these unfair and terrible things to them. So I want, again, every mixed black person who's listening to this to know that you have my full support, because you too are a black person. You too are in the black community. And I truly wholeheartedly believe that. But at the same time, the shit like this that Jussie was doing and, some of the aloofness that I see, that's got to stop. That has got to stop, because the problem is that you all are going to be subjected to white supremacy the same way that Jussie was, despite the fact that he was being funny, the way that Meghan Markle was, the way that Zoe Kravitz was. So I just wanted to make sure I made that point. Again, I just want to also say this too. Everything that I'm saying is all love, no disrespect, just trying to make sure that my point is understood and it's very clear. Anyway, y'all, I hope y'all enjoyed this episode for today. I thought it was very informative. I hope y'all feel the same way about it. But anyway, if you enjoyed this, feel free to stay tuned for more. I'm going to have like some new episodes to come. And other than that, I appreciate any and everyone who has listened in and is continuing to support me and tell others about how great the Pro Black Blurred Kingdom podcast is. I hope you all have a good rest of y'all's night, and I will talk to y'all later. Peace.